Oh, you mean like the speaker that I brought to work at that really shitty place that can just go eat a dick?
Yes, yes, that one that can eat all the dicks and the balls, both of them.
Well, the old manager certainly was not averse to the dick and balls, but you know what? He was at least trying to be a good guy despite the fucked up situation. But he can still eat a dick too.
Still eat a dick. The second prize was one of those like standing desks. So it's a desk that you can have presets on where if you want to install the desk in your house, you hit a button and the thing is going to rise to your standing height. And what came with the desk is one of those treadmills so you can walk on the treadmill while you're busy wasting your fucking existence on YouTube.
All right, let's be honest, Reds. You want that one for one reason and one reason only: to get the donkey at a good height.
There we go. Now we're talking.
Which,
And
welcome everyone. The stupidity is still going on. The nonsense is still going on. Some of us have just been blissfully away from it for other reasons.
absolutely.
But speaking of the idiocy that has been grabbing your attention lately, okay, so Flurfs, let's admit, can we all just give up on them already?
I mean, I'm getting close to doing that, although I'm not there yet. My biggest thing is that I got some shit going on right now that requires my attention, and debunking flirts on the internet is, kind of not on the top of my list of priorities at the moment because of all this other shit that I got going on. So there's that.
But you did say that there was something else that has caught your attention on the interwebs, a different flavor of stupid.
Yeah.
Is
Um,
it the stupid we were talking about last week?
Maybe it could have been, but now I know why I never ventured into this space. But I've been a silent observer. I've been watching a few other YouTubers who have a following in this area, and it's the whole political nonsense. And
Run
what I
away.
found, what I found was that people have been convinced for some reason to vote against their own interests, and the rationale for voting against their own interests is fucking absurd. So there's that. I've also been watching a lot of Louis Rossman and his battle for right to repair, and just the incredible dog shit tactics that companies, pull to make it so that you can't fix your own shit without going to the manufacturer. Apple is very egregious on that, but now you have automakers that are also doing it. So there may come a time in the future where you won't be able to fix your own shit without the dealership giving you the permission to fix your own shit. So even if you have a part and you install that part correctly, your car will not be able to recognize that part unless the dealership gives it permission to work. That is fucked up.
You mean like how some vehicle manufacturers make it to where you have to go in and electronically tell the computer, hey, I just put in a new steering column?
Yep, my car is definitely one of those cars, which pisses me off. But what was interesting is that there was a um, vote in Massachusetts, I think maybe a few months ago or maybe a year ago. Don't quote me on that. But Louis Rossman was talking about it, and apparently in that state, there was a vote on whether or not auto manufacturers should make diagnostic equipment um, available to independents so that they can properly diagnose their shit. And people will probably be saying, well, such a system already exists. It's called the OBD2 port. However, newer vehicles are going to be doing away with the OBD2 port. They're going to be doing everything wirelessly. And in the original letter of understanding or in the original law or whatever it was, there was an exemption stating that they didn't have to release any access to your car's diagnostics if it was through a wireless system. So long as it's wired, you're good. But if it's wireless, you're fucked. And so if they get rid of the OBD2 port, your only option is wireless, because that's literally how they designed the fucking car. And so this is just another way for automotive manufacturers to grab you by the balls and make you their bitch after the sale, after they rape you at the dealership. Well, there was a vote stating that yes, we do want it to be a law that mandates that manufacturers allow independents to access the diagnostic information so people can find out what the fuck is actually wrong with your car to fix it properly. Well, apparently, whoever is in the pocket of NHTSA, that Highway Traffic Administration group, that group from the government, even though there was a vote that passed overwhelmingly in favor of allowing independents to access that information, NHTSA was like, hey, automotive manufacturers, do not follow this law, even though the voters requested it. Do not follow this law because reasons. And I believe what Louis Rossmann said those reasons was because money. Lots and lots of fucking money. You mean we can fuck over the customer before the sale and after the sale? Wow. Excellent. So that was a thing that happened. And so basically there's this giant conspiracy going on with NHTSA and the automotive industry to fuck over the people who are literally buying their shit. And given the fact that we live in a car-centric environment, yeah, that's not very good for us. You kind of need a car, and I don't want to be forced to go to the dealership every single time I want to do a fucking oil change.
Yeah, this actually goes along with the conversation I had with one of the guys where I work now, pointing out that of the changes that I believe need to and should happen from a government standpoint, it's going to be very difficult to do, because I had mentioned my whole idea of doing a clean sweep, a clean house, and getting rid of the vast majority of people who are currently in federal office. And yes, I mean at every fucking level of elected office. But recognizing that that's just tip of the iceberg. That's just surface level shit.
Oh yeah.
One of the things that would have to change, and it gets tricky in how constitutional it would be, and also how would you enforce it, and that is getting rid of the fucking lobbyists and all that external money that is just somehow finding its way to the politicians, because money has no influence on how a person votes once they're in office, does it?
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. And the one thing that I've said over and over again is that even though most of the policy changes that I want to see enacted are very much left-wing, we must keep in mind that the politicians who are on the left are also bought out by people who do not give a flying fuck about you. They are actively destroying your lives as we speak, and they're doing it with a smile. By the way, how is it a fucking thing that Nancy Pelosi is allowed to play the stock market? Can someone please explain to me how that shit's legal?
Not just play the stock market. Never fucking lose money in the stock market.
Yep. There was a few, one of the things that pissed me off was that I was watching a few reposts of TikTok on YouTube Shorts, because God forbid the day I download TikTok. But I was watching these reposts, and a lot of them were stating how all they had to do was mimic all of Nancy Pelosi's moves on the stock market, and they became rich by basically doing no work. Oh, she did this? Well, I'm going to do that too. Well, you know, it worked out. Imagine that. And I'm like, how the fuck is this allowed? Like, holy shit. So that was the one thing that was pissing me off, is that, well, not only are these people fucking us, but we're allowing them to play the stock market. They literally get to make the rules and fuck us with those rules while making themselves rich in the process.
And you know, that is actually one of the details that people seem to forget about, that actually the first time around made people consider voting for Trump, because motherfucker was upfront about the shit that he was doing and how it was legal, because no, the loopholes are there. I use them, you use them, the people who back you use them. And his audacity to actually put that out there actually did open the potential for a lot of people to vote for him. And that's why he won in one of the reasons why he won in 2016. But I'm also wondering how many of the people who voted for him in 2016 did so just as a shitpost type of vote. There's probably a good amount of those too.
There's a good amount of those, but I imagine the same is true for Biden. And quite frankly, I agree with you. They are both, in my opinion, unfit for office. And quite frankly, Joe Biden needs to be in a fucking nursing home. Can we finally have like an age limit on this shit? I don't think that's a controversial position to have at this point. we need to have it fucking 80. If you're 80 years old, you don't need to be the president of the United States. You need to be retired in a fucking nursing home.
I'll be blunt. I voted for Biden. I didn't really want to, but I voted.
Right.
I voted for myself.
Well, there are those people out there who did vote for Biden because they saw it as a lesser of two evils, which sometimes is the way you have to go. But
it was a choice between, hey, you can have a shit sandwich or you can have a shit sandwich with guac. I mean, I guess I'll take the guac if you're asking, but the lack of guac wasn't really my concern.
Yeah, I'm usually not the type that like votes just to get someone out of office, but it got to that point. Usually I'm voting third party. I mean,
right, we've had that discussion before a number of times, where we will talk more, a fuck ton more, about the third party options than either primary party, because guess what? Both of them can lick my fucking ass.
Just make sure it's after you've had some Chipotle and Taco Bell on the same day.
It was also somewhat beneficial that, especially at the time in like 2020, when you actually looked at the third party candidates, they weren't really that good either. I mean,
well, not only are they not,
we had a libertarian that could have paid that could have passed for like extreme right wing Republican 10 years prior. We had a green candidate who was a borderline communist.
My opinion on the whole thing, and this is why I hate both parties. Republicans have a lot of bad ideas, and they're going to work their asses off to implement them. Democrats have a lot of good ideas, but they're pussies. They don't want to do the work to actually enact them. Like, how long have we been hearing about the fucking bitching and moaning about, Roe v. Wade being overturned? Roe v. Wade was overturned. They all lost their shit. And I'm like, there have been many times in history where you motherfuckers had a supermajority and you could have codified that shit and you chose not to. So you guys have no one to blame but yourself. Then they start bitching about the affordable housing crisis, how a one-bedroom apartment for some fucking reason costs $2,500 a month and no one can afford to fucking live. They're wondering how that happened. Well, it's because you motherfuckers didn't want to make it not a thing for corporations to buy a shit ton of housing and drive up the cost to live in certain areas. Like a lot of single-family homes in the United States, an absurd amount is owned by corporations who have no desire to sell it to people who actually need a home. They want to rent it in perpetuity and raise the rents every single time the lease gets renewed. This means that they're going to make a return on investment. It's good for shareholders, all that shit. Keep in mind, this is the same people that fucked us in 2008. And since 2008, Democrats have had a supermajority. And guess what? They did fucking nothing. If I remember correctly, one Democrat, Elizabeth Warren, was putting the fucking screws to this guy called Drumpf. Yeah, that's actually his name. Who was the CEO of Wells Fargo. Absolutely tearing the CEO a new fucking asshole. And because it was during the time about the fake account fraud, where a person, without giving any authorization to Wells Fargo, would make fake accounts in customers' names. And this was to drive up, of course, a big revenue influx for Wells Fargo and a huge-ass bonus for Drumpf. Now, she was talking about how he should be ashamed, he's a thief, and, all this, golden parachute talk and whatever the fuck else. Well, after that scandal broke and, and big financial fucking scandal, they got fined millions, if not billions of dollars. I forget the exact amount, but whatever. What rules changed in regards to CEO pay when they're caught doing some, bluntly illegal shit? Fucking nothing. Democrats have the capability of introducing shit that could hold them accountable. They just choose not to. So we're getting fucked left, right, and center. Democrats ain't doing shit. They're saying all the right things, but they're not doing any action on the stuff that they're preaching whatsoever. None whatsoever. They're pussies. They're like, oh, we need to work with people across the aisle. Fuck people across the aisle. Fuck them.
There are times you need to. But you need to pick and choose when those moments are and actually not have your head up your ass about it. And that's actually something, is there used to be a time where the two parties would work together.
Yeah. There was such a time.
I'm trying to remember when it stopped. Because there was a lot of agreements and a lot of working together in the early 2000s. A little event in 2001 might have had an influence on that, but after that point, when did they stop working together and become such cantankerous asshats?
Yeah,
exactly. It seemed to really stop like during Obama's presidency.
Well, what's also
like when it just like halted for like the parking brake was set. Yep.
Well, yeah, they did, and also I wonder where Democrats lost the will to do literally anything. Like for example, one way that they could have stuck it to the Wells Fargo situation, and the way they could have stuck it to multiple higher ups across multiple industries, is to raise the minimum wage. Start treating your employees a little bit more fairly. Have stronger labor laws that benefit the worker and not the fucking 0.001% at the very top. They could have done these things. They just choose not to because, as I said, they're cowards. They don't want to actually get their hands dirty and start working on some shit that's actually going to benefit people. This is why I don't really like them all that much. They haven't done shit, and we're paying the price for it. And another thing they could have done, which they should have done a long fucking time ago, is they should have outlawed some things that are blatantly anti-consumer. So Jared, we were talking about this recently. You know that shit where BMW was trying to push subscription services for heated seats and heated steering wheels, even though that equipment was already installed in the car?
Wait, what?
Yeah, remember?
You didn't hear about that?
Yeah.
I know that there's been some fuckery going on with shit in the automotive industry, but I don't remember that one.
Oh, well, we were talking about it in passing, but anywho, I'll go ahead and fill you in. So BMW and Toyota are the two big players when it comes to this type of bullshit. BMW introduced a subscription service that if you were to pay them a certain amount of money, you would gain access to certain features that are already installed on your vehicle. So that would be like heated seats, heated steering wheel. For Mercedes on their EQ lines, their electric cars, you could pay them, I think it was $1,500 or $1,800 a year, and they would unlock more performance for your vehicle. Keep in mind, your vehicle already has the capability of running those 0 to 60 times, but the manufacturer will not allow it to run those 0 to 60 times unless you pay them more fucking money. For Toyota, they were offering a subscription service for remote start, and if you would have to pay them money for the remote start feature, even though your car already
The hardware's there.
Yeah, the hardware's already there. The button's on your key fob. It just wouldn't be active unless you pay Toyota money. And keep in mind, these are features that used to come with a one-time payment from you, the consumer, to the manufacturer. So you pay once for this feature, and it's yours. That's it. Now, I don't like that Tesla hid more performance and more range behind a paywall. That was a dipshit move on their part. However, once you paid it, you got it for life. It was yours. You paid the money, and they're not going to shut it off after the fact. The next owner had a funny story about that, but that's not important to this rant right here. But essentially, manufacturers are now trying to make services that you would have gotten with a one-time payment a subscription. Services, features that you would have gotten with a one-time payment, you would now have to pay the manufacturer monthly to access the shit that you already paid for, essentially. Now, why can't the fucking NHTSA or the National whatever fucking administration on consumer affairs or whatever the fuck it's called, basically tell them, no, you're not going to pull that shit on us. We know that remote start doesn't require server access. We know that heated seats and heated steering wheels don't require server access. We know that more voltage being pulled from the battery that you already fucking paid for doesn't require server access. So why the fuck are you going to try and charge our citizens for these luxuries when it used to be you paid once and that was it? Kind of makes you think, does it not?
It really does come down to the fucking cash grabs.
Exactly.
And that's are they really that hard up that they have to stoop to those levels to make their profit? And even then, how much profit are they making versus losing by making it a one-time feature as part of a package that's already on the car?
Well, notice the common theme with all of these issues that have been pissing me off on YouTube recently. It's because our politicians are paid off and they do not want to go after what is essentially the company's bottom line. They're in this shit to make money, and they pay off our politicians to make sure that that cash flow is not interrupted, even if it fucks the little guy in the process. Oh, this is going to make rent spike. Fuck them. Oh, this is going to make features that you used to be able to pay for once, and that's it. It's going to make those features a subscription service. Fuck them. Oh, this is going to cause your property to not be repairable. Fuck them. Because the politicians still want to go after the company's bottom line. They don't want to interrupt their influx of fucking cash. They're swimming in this shit, and they don't want to interrupt that because guess what? They're getting a slice of that pie, and they don't want to interrupt that either because that pie is fucking delicious. The only government that I have seen recently that's actually been able to do some sort of good is the EU. Recently, and I saw this on Lewis Rossman's YouTube channel, the EU is mandating that phones have a user removable battery. Thank fucking God. I'm about ready to fall on my knees and I'm ready to suck Jesus off because that is amazing. About fucking time. And as Lewis Rossman also pointed out, that Samsung used to have a phone with a user removable battery that was IP68 water resistant. It was from Samsung, and I believe it also had a headphone jack. So clearly, you know, waterproofing is not the fucking issue here. No, the actual reason they sandwiched the phones in the way that they did is because they didn't want you to be able to fix your own shit. And the wear item that's going to go first before basically anything else is the battery. It doesn't last forever, and they fucking know this. That's why they want you to buy another $1,000 fucking iPhone when the battery takes a shit, because you can't replace it.
And we can also thank the EU because they were the ones that pushed the common connector, which forced Apple to go away from their proprietary Lightning to, now they call it the Lightning 3, but it's their version of USB-C.
Mm-hmm. And here's the thing. Apple is not the only one that's sandwiching their phones. I have a Pixel. This thing is also a glass sandwich. It's also really, really hard to repair because just like an iPhone, they glue the fucking battery into this goddamn thing. But it used to be that it wasn't uncommon back in the early 2000s to be walking around with a spare battery. And, you know, that was normal. So if your battery went dead after using it all day, you know, pop that motherfucker out, pop a new motherfucker in, and boom, you have a fully charged battery ready to rock and roll. And unlike today's batteries, they didn't explode as much. So clearly the technology is there. But the reason why they're not doing this is because they are anti-consumer. They're like, how can we fuck the little guy as much as possible? I know, let's make our phones unrepairable. Let's make our cars unrepairable. Let's make it so that you need proprietary software to access the diagnostics on your own fucking car. This shit used to be accessible through an OBD2 port, but we lobbied so that there would be an exception for wireless shit. And guess what? Now we're removing the OBD2 port where your only option is wireless. What a coincidence.
Yeah, fuck those turd nuggets.
Exactly, fuck those turd nuggets. And this is why I've been pissed off lately, because all this shit could easily be solved by our elected officials. If I remember correctly, there was only one state that had any sort of right to repair, and it was only, I believe, to the agricultural industry. Basically, farmers at one point were having to hack their John Deere tractors just to make the shit work with their parts that they replaced on those tractors. So, for example, tractors will work with wheel speed sensors so that they can calibrate, I guess, their combining or whatever. I'm not a farmer, so maybe I'm getting the terminology wrong here. But essentially, they would replace parts on their tractor. But the tractor would immediately throw a fault and refuse to work properly unless someone from John Deere plugged their shitty laptop into the tractor and gave the tractor permission to work. Independents were essentially put out of business because only older tractors could be serviced because they didn't have this proprietary shit on their farm equipment. But now with the newer shit coming online, it's all computerized and therefore can be locked behind they can be locked behind software walls. You know, that walled garden approach that Apple is so famous for. Well, the law in Colorado, I believe it is, mandates that their walled garden be unlocked for independents and to the farmers that want to fix their own shit. So if I install a wheel speed sensor I am now mandated by law to have access to the diagnostic equipment so that I can tell the tractor, yes, this is a brand new wheel speed sensor. You now have permission to use it to do your tractor shit. That's amazing. And I believe one of the headlines from that from the news article that talked about it was first in the country. Well, I have a question, a very simple question. Why the fuck is it first in the country? And why isn't this shit just being, recommended, country? Why isn't this a federal fucking law stating that manufacturers can't pull this shit on consumers? You should be allowed to fix your own shit.
Well, this actually goes back to another comment I made in that conversation at work today. The question was asked, how free is America? Like, how free are we compared to other countries? And my initial response after thinking was, not nearly as free as you think. Because look at all the nickel and diming, look at all the petty pedantic bullshit that you quite literally have to pay for access to. And not only is it right to repair, that's one piece to the puzzle, but also think about this. Why is it illegal across most of the country to collect rainwater?
Yeah, there's another one.
I mean, when you're getting into what it is that actually sets the U.S. apart from a freedom standpoint, things that we can do that you may or may not be able to do in other countries, we have it on the books. The First and Second Amendments, the right to free speech and gathering and firearm ownership for self-protection and other reasons that they really don't want people to know is one of the reasons. But beyond that, are you really free to say whatever you want?
Well, one of our biggest part of the problems we have in the U.S. is the fact that, people have rights, but the problem is that we consider corporations people too.
Right, and that's part of where we go off the rails and start going into the dystopian shit is, sorry, a company is not a person. And something you had brought up before, Red, that actually is something else that is a piece of the puzzle that I could see being beneficial to the populace as a whole, which is why no current elected official will even fucking consider it. If you really want to affect some actual lasting change, just from a financial standpoint, let's just stick with the finances. There are two changes that I would like to see put in place, and especially if they were enforceable, that would make humongous changes near overnight. The first one, you are an elected official in Congress. Guess what your salary is based off of? The mean salary of your constituents. No longer flat rate. You are paid the average of the people you are there to represent. The other thing, speaking of corporations being treated as people, the total compensation, notice I didn't say income, the total compensation of executive level persons in a company should have a cap based on that is compared to the average salary of the entire employee base of the company. And I've been kicking around with where that should be, and right now I'm thinking probably around the 150%, maybe 175% range. Basically saying your top tier executives, their total compensation, which is all the bonuses and other bullshit, that way they can avoid income taxes because it's not income, it's this other fucking bullshit. Their total compensation is legally not allowed to exceed let's call it 175% of the median wages of their entire employee base. I could see that leading to some rather interesting changes when it comes to your average employee's actual pay. I mean,
And also, and to basically debunk the notion that corporations own people are people, which basically they're not. Let me explain. If I was found guilty of, manslaughter of over 300 people, what the fuck do you think would happen to me? It wouldn't be pretty. Oh boy, it wouldn't be pretty at all. But Boeing is able to do it, and they get off with a fucking fine that is literally a fraction of their profits. So, for those that don't know what I'm talking about, it was the MAX 8 fiasco where a rush to compete with Airbus led to design shortcuts. And one of these design shortcuts was a piece of software called MCAS, where the plane would literally nosedive out of the fucking sky. And so this design flaw led to the deaths of 300 people, and this was over two airplanes, 2 flights, 2 different companies. So if corporations are people, then those corporations should be in fucking jail right now, for what's it, manslaughter or negligent homicide or some shit like that. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer or criminal prosecutor or anything like that.
In this case, it would have fallen under most jurisdictions negligent homicide because Boeing knew of the issue prior to release of the aircraft.
Correct. It came out in investigations, and even in a later documentary that I was watching, which was another thing that pissed me off was this fucking documentary, was that Boeing knew of this issue and did nothing. They, again, wanted to beat Airbus. And so this, race to the bottom led to lives being lost. And so given that fact, if corporations are people, I don't think the punishment should be a fucking fine, but yet that's exactly what they got, was a fine. Really? Well, it seems these people are getting privileges that aren't available to, actual people. Imagine that. They're special people.
Oh, they are special, all right.
Well, pretty much. I mean, because I get the concept of, the initial concept of like corporate personhood came from the idea of it being a fictional person, for the purpose of for the purpose of it being in court. But yeah, it's the point now where they're not even really fictional people. They effectively have more rights than people.
Yeah, exactly. They have more rights than actual people, and that's what's fucked up. You got
all the benefits and none of the negatives.
They're fucking with us left, right, and center, and it's like, and what we're doing and what I'm seeing is that we're voting politicians in that are literally fucking us alongside them, and we're not holding them accountable. And I also agree that maybe because we don't really have any good options. Like I said, look at the last presidential campaign. It was a choice between cat shit and dog shit. There was no good options. But at some point, we just got to say enough is enough and be like, look, you're kind of screwing the pooch here. We don't want you to run again. And so I would literally have another election, although I may not be calling it that, but it would just be a simple question on the ballot for the American people. Do you want Joe Biden to run again, or should he be kicked the fuck out so that a different Democrat or an independent can run against whoever the top opposing party's candidate is? I think that would be awesome.
Well, that's part of what the primary process is supposed to do. The problem is it's been ingrained so much over the last 40 years now that when you have an incumbent that is eligible for re-election, they don't even primary against them unless it was someone who had done absolutely horrendously in it. Like, think Jimmy Carter level horrendous performance in office. And outside of that, you have the incumbent running for office again, which, if they're doing a good job, if they're doing a passable and serviceable job, okay. Like Clinton, after his first term, going for a second term, there really wasn't anyone that could really compete and do a better job than he actually ended up doing. Did they put him through a witch hunt because of other shenanigans? Yes. Was that witch hunt warranted? Mostly. He was not the best person, but he did admirably in the job. I mean, hell, we have not had a balanced federal budget since Clinton left office. Hell, we have had a fucking murderous time just trying to get a budget approved for the last going on 8 years.
I mean, what I think I saw. I don't know where I saw this. Maybe it was NPR, but there was a poll stating that a lot of Americans, I think the majority of Americans, one, don't want Biden to rerun for president. I think that's a given. But also in there, the majority of Americans want Congress and the Senate to be completely removed so we can start afresh. No one there is doing their jobs. Everyone there sucks ass. Just clean the slate and let's start from scratch, and then let's have people run. Let's have new people run for those seats. I think that would be absolutely amazing.
I think there needs to be a change and improvement to the vetting process of people who are running for federal office to begin with. I think that's part of it. Is we need to find a better way to vet the candidates, because let's be honest, your average citizen isn't doing dick to look into the candidates that are being put before them. They're just looking at the name, looking at the party, and flipping a coin.
Yeah, to quote George Carlin, like, these politicians, they don't like come in from a portal from another universe. It's the best we could come up with, guys.
Yep. It might, and most people make their political decisions based on 60-second TikTok videos, which really speaks to how short our attention spans have become.
And let me quote something I had there because I was talking about Lauren Boebert, and I was telling someone that I used to think Lauren Boebert was a moron and a poor representative, but then I met her constituents, and I think she's a perfect representative.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, is the American populace used to be so much better informed about regular issues. And this is where I start looking at the media in general and even the media in totality, because name a national news anchor that you remember that you actually had some respect for.
I remember one where I had some respect for a little bit. Probably not as much anymore, because I'm going to be completely honest, I don't watch them ever. I think this was the only time I actually watched them, and it was back in 2018. I remember this vividly. But I was on a flight, and for those who have flown Southwest, because it's a cheap fucking airline, they do offer free Wi-Fi entertainment where you can click on the channels. And for some reason, God knows why, I decided to click on the CNN. And Anderson Cooper was speaking. And he was about ready to do a special. And he brought up a tweet from Donald Trump's son, I believe it was Donald Trump Jr. I don't think it was Eric, but there was a tweet talking about fake news and how you saw camera people standing in a little bit of water, like maybe up to their ankles, talking about the flooding that was going on in Texas, while Anderson Cooper was all the way up to his fucking nipples, and they were talking about how bad it looks. So basically exaggerating the situation to make it look worse than it actually was. And he was basically being called out for promoting fake news at its best, over exaggerating the flooding that was happening in Texas. Well, Anderson Cooper made a reply to that video, and Jared, I'll send it to you later because I know it's on here on YouTube somewhere. But what Anderson Cooper did was probably one of the most thorough ass kickings I have ever seen from an anchor, because that was not the hurricane, the recent hurricane that happened, I guess, under Trump's presidency. That hurricane happened 7 years ago, and I believe it was Hurricane Ike, but don't quote me on that. And he actually quoted from the Republican governor at the time saying it was one of the worst flooding in Texas state history. And he also showed clips from that broadcast saying that my camera people are on shallow ground. I am here to show you just how deep it can get, and when people drive into this shit, they get swamped and trapped. People need to understand just how deep this water can get, not that it was that depth all over the fucking place. So he was being very truthful in his reporting and calling out Donnie for confusing a broadcast with one that was fucking 7 years ago when Donald Trump wasn't even president. And the way that he explained all of this and showed all of this was amazing. But one of the clinchers was the very last 30 seconds of the piece from Anderson Cooper, where he says, by the way, you see that guy in this picture? He's our tech guy. That is the guy that is responsible for the cameras and the sound and everything like that. Well, that guy was part of my team. He died 2 years ago today, and we miss him every day. And then you show in loving memory of this guy who was the tech guy. So literally the person featured in that picture wasn't even alive to bitch about Donald Trump and the shitty job that he was doing. That piece right there was probably the greatest example of a thorough ass kicking of Donald Trump and Donald Trump Jr. than I have ever seen in my entire life. I mean, I was on a plane and I gave a standing ovation. That was a chef's kiss. I mean, I'm pretty sure that Donnie's ass is still sore from this day to this day, given how badly Anderson Cooper fucked it. It was amazing. But that's about the only time I can actually think of. Everything else is dog shit.
Yeah, well, and my frame of reference goes back even further, because when I think of a journalist that had integrity and that you could trust, there are two names that come to mind. One that retired around the time I was born, but I still would see highlights of and actually get actual stories about how he handled himself, and the videos are out there, and that's Cronkite. But after him, the one that comes to mind for me is Peter Jennings. And we have an entire generation of newscasters that you have to be an absolute fucking moron to trust. I mean, media has become less about informing the populace and more about, well, what ratings can we get to sell ad space? Again, it's back to the fucking money.
It's back to the fucking money. Exactly.
Because
it's back to fucking money.
Also,
keep in mind that the news organizations also have CEOs, and they also love their bank account to be just a little bit more fatter than it already is. I mean, I want that shit to be fucking thick.
Also, like a lot of the news is like shifted to these news networks, and to be blunt, like most of the news network programming isn't news; it's commentary and opinion. But it's not advertised as opinion. So
Right. And that's part of what it really gets me is there are people out there who don't see the difference. There are people our age, like, well, Reds, you're still kind of on the young side. Tech, you are a little bit older. But like, let's use my age for a median. 40 years old. There is a huge group of people in that 40-year-old-ish range that don't realize the actual impetus behind what they are being presented with during their nightly newscast. Yes, they're telling you current events, but they're only telling you the events that they really think that you should know about. And then they're going to be painting it in such a way that this is what you should be thinking about this. Not giving the facts of it, not just giving, hey, this is what happened, this is the analyst from this side of it with this background. No, it's editorialized to fuck and back.
Yep, absolutely. It's and like I said, that's why it's not reliable, and that's why Trump's cries of fake news, it resonates with so many people because quite frankly, it's obvious that they have a narrative they're trying to fucking push. You can go find the information yourself, and that's just the raw facts, and see a lot of shit on your own without having to go to these news sites that just want to try and sell you something. And like I said, they have their CEOs too, and all you have to do is follow the money. Follow the fucking money. Democrats are paid off. So if you go to a Democratic leaning news organization, you're going to see them filling the politicians' pockets just as you would the higher ups at Fox News, for example. They're both stuffing pockets, and there's really no stopping them at this point.
Well, Fox News is hemorrhaging money, so.
Well, now they are, mainly because of their insane amount of lawsuits, but that's on them. I don't really feel sorry for them. Fuck them. But to that end, to what Jared said, it's all about following the money. So let's do that with a brief trek through history. So what do we want to say hey, Jared, what's the average salary for a United States citizen at the current moment in time? Was it like $35,000, $40,000, something like that?
Between 35 and 40.
Okay, let's say $35,000. So let's say the workers all throughout history made the equivalent, and I know inflation's, the value of the dollar was different, but let's say the equivalent of $35,000 in today's money. You go back to 1965, you would see that CEOs would make 25 times that amount. So if the average worker made $35,000 in their company, the CEO would walk away with $875,000 roughly. So not even $1 million. All right, so that was back in 1965. Now, if we fast forward to today, we actually are now very close to 380 times that, not 20, 380. So if we take the $35,000, multiply that by 380, that would mean that it has jumped to $13.3 million, where the average was $850,000. That's a hell of a fucking jump. So let's go ahead and do some fast math there. Let's say 13.3 million, 85000, blah, blah, blah. That is a jump of 15.6 times. Now, if we look at workers' pay increase over that same period of time, nothing has changed. In fact, if you look at our spending power to what we had previously, we're actually getting paid less, even though we are more productive. Your parents could probably work a good paying job and be reasonably expected to be able to afford a house, a car, without being bent over and shafted dry with absolutely no lube. Now it's actually a joke that young people will never be able to afford a home ever. In fact, John Oliver knew that so much that he had an episode about HOAs, and he literally said, by the way, if you're a millennial, this episode's not for you because you will never be able to afford a house. That's just a fact. So we made an entirely new episode just for you. It's 30 minutes long, and it's about Chuck E. Cheese. This actually fucking happened on HBO. This is how much of a fucking joke our spending power has become. So we are making less money, yet we are more productive so that CEOs at the very top can make 15 times what we do on average, not to mention all of their millions of dollars in bonuses and the stock options that they have and the golden parachutes that they have. They essentially have a red carpet to fuck us while we get scrapped. We have to fight to hang on to whatever bottom rung of the ladder that we've been presented with. It's fucked up. And so that's where we say follow the money, because they don't want to stop this shit. They love it. Oh my God. How am I supposed to afford my 6 Gulfstream 6 private jet if people are asking to unionize? I was hearing from conservative media outlets that it is a fucking travesty that UPS workers are making 6 figures. For me personally, I'm fucking happy for them. More power to them. In fact, they should probably be making $50,000 more than what they're actually making right now, even though they're making 6 figures. Why? Because they fucking deserve it. People deserve to fucking live and be happy. You shouldn't have to, struggle and suffer to afford a 1-bedroom apartment. I don't know. I'm crazy like that. Fuck.
And it's also beneficial that they're able to hold that dime by keeping minimum wage laws down, by convincing the people making $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 that it's unfair if we pay those people in the bottom more.
I heard. I saw
by avoiding the things that the people we're talking to should also be paid more.
I saw a wonderful, there's a website out there like Ask a Mathematician or something like that. And so he was basically asked, if we were to pay people at bare minimum $15 an hour, what would that mean for the price of a Big Mac? He was asked this question. And if every single employee was paid at least $15 an hour, and we were to just transfer and shoulder that extra expense onto the cost of a fucking Big Mac, the result was that the Big Mac would go up by 3 cents. 3 fucking cents.
Yeah, I have generally noticed there's this tendency I noticed that people think payroll makes up a larger percentage than it actually does. Like they think suddenly payroll is going to drastically alter something.
Well, and that's actually one of the pieces of advice that my wife tells her clients, is that if your payroll is more than 33 to 35% of your overhead, either you're paying way too much in your payroll, or your pricing is severely under what you should be charging. And this is in a pet care industry. This is in an industry that should have regulation but doesn't.
What I believe we need is we need to basically mandate that every single company that has a certain number of employees, let's say, I don't know, I'm going to pull a number out of my ass, 200 employees, is that a good one? We need a 250, somewhere around there. Let's have an arbitrary number. That as soon as your company is large enough to hit that number of employees, you are mandated to have a union. You are mandated to have a union that can authorize strikes and negotiate payroll for everybody. There was a fucking CEO of Gravity Payments out of Seattle, Washington. I actually applied to this company because he is a guy that he's the CEO of the company and he only makes $70,000 a year. Now, why does he only make $70,000 a year? Because that is what his starting salary is. You come in, whether you're the fucking janitor or you get, a more important position within the company, you start with $70,000 and you go up from there. That's starting at $70,000. Now, keep in mind that the average American is only making, what did we say, $35,000, $40,000 a year, not even.
Nationally, yeah.
Nationally, yeah. So, but he shows that it can happen. Now, there was stories after stories after stories, mostly on right-wing media, showing that this is going to be a failed experiment of socialism. Just wait, you see. The company has exploded. I think their growth is now 6 times what they were when that initial report went out. So clearly, this crazy experiment of socialism didn't fail. It's fucking working. And guess what? Their retention is amazing. People like working there. It's amazing what happens when you pay your employees a livable wage and they don't feel stressed the fuck out. And the same should be true for another overlooked sector of the working force of the United States, which is truckers. Did we all see that that one documentary where a guy literally is making less than minimum wage because they do not have protections in place that at least guarantee them that much, as pitiful as the minimum wage is?
Oh yeah,
so
your over-the-road truckers, a lot of people don't realize just how their pay structure even works. I mean, I have a few uncles that were truckers, and one of the big things that kills the profitability of a trucker is what they call deadheading. So
yes.
if you see a semi truck that does not have a trailer on it, guaranteed that person is driving for zero money. Mm-hmm. They are not making anything in that time that they are doing that transit. But then there's the other cases, say they have a trailer on them, but you see the trailer moving a bit more than you would think that it should. Well, that's because that trailer is empty. Again, they're deadheading. They are not getting paid because truckers only get paid when they are moving a product or a substance or something.
It's by the mile type of shit. And another thing that really fucks them over is that the receivers and shippers, the people who actually load the truck, like to take their sweet fucking time. You are allowed to work 14 hours a day. However, you're only allowed to drive for, 10 of those 14 hours, which means you're allowed to work as in maybe help load or unload, hook, unhook, that kind of thing. And as far as the actual driving portion, it's only 10 hours. Well, if a shipper or receiver is taking their sweet fucking time eating into your time, that's not your fault. It's not your fault that they're dragging ass. However, it's eating into your time. Now, let's say they take their sweet time during the 4-hour window that you couldn't be driving anyway. Not really a big deal. But we have horror stories of people on YouTube saying, I've been at this shipper for 16 hours. These motherfuckers haven't budged, and I am making no money while I'm sitting here. And there is no minimum like, hey, if you're waiting for this long, we'll still pay you at the very least this amount of money. No. So let's say you are just unlucky and you're hitting shipper after shipper after shipper that is just dragging ass. That's your money going down the fucking toilet. And this is how you get horror stories of, truckers not being able to pay their bills.
And there was a time when being an over-the-road trucker was actually a very lucrative position. And
it was.
I think that's one of the things that is really sad in all of this. The blue-collar type professions that can, and in some cases do, earn quite the living But there has been such a focus and push of, oh, you shouldn't go into a trade, go to college. Oh, you shouldn't be a trucker, go to college. You shouldn't be a mechanic, go to college.
Yeah,
Why?
exactly.
Not everyone is cut out for that level of academia. Not every position out there requires that sort of wherewithal and work ethic that comes from completing a college degree. There are plenty of jobs out there where you have to be physically enough able and willing to do the work. And the fact that those jobs are not being promoted more by guidance counselors, by people actually in positions where they should be recognizing, hey, you're probably not going to be suited to be successful in college, at least not right away.
What?
So have you considered these options? And that is one reason why Mike Rowe and what he was started with on his Dirty Jobs show and has stuck with throughout, more people need to fucking listen to him and that sort of
part of the
mentality.
Part of the problem actually is like, okay, schools still have guidance counselors, but they're not guidance counselors.
No.
What I
not
mean by
anymore.
that is that they have a position that's still titled guidance counselors, but all the work that the guidance counselors used to do or don't do that. They're basically tasked with like test facilitation, test administration. They don't actually do any guidance counseling you're working for. They've been given other tasks to do. So there are no guidance counselors in school.
Also, on top of the trucking thing, there's two things I want to say on this. The first thing is that, yeah, trucking used to be a very lucrative job. Adjusted for inflation, of course, truckers in the past would make $100,000 a year. And for that, you're able to make shit happen in your actual life. You can pay your bills, you can support a family, and there was more time off so that a trucker could spend time with the family. Nowadays, truckers hardly see any home time whatsoever. They'll be gone for months at a time and only be allowed to come back for 7 days? And I'm sorry, that's fucking horrible. And they're making dirt money for that sacrifice. And what was stated over and over and over again in these reports is that, trucking is the backbone of America. If all trucks stopped, you would see that shit in 24 hours or less. And I believe it. There's that aspect. But then we also have the fact that these laws, like, for example, the laws I was talking about where you're only allowed to drive for 14 hours, that law is also fucking over truckers. Because let's say you're stuck at a shipper and you're technically working as you're waiting for them to load or unload your truck. Well, you're not the one doing the loading or unloading. You're sitting in your cab, eating mac and cheese, watching House on your TV, and that's not really work. You're resting, you're taking a nap, you're sleeping. So you wake up from that. You technically worked without pay because you weren't moving. You technically worked for a certain amount of time, for a certain amount of hours during that nap that you took. Well, you're actually well rested. You're able to drive and you can do so safely. You know yourself, but you're not allowed to because given how long the shipper took, you can only drive for maybe 30 more minutes because that's all the time you have on your clock, which means you now are mandated to rest for at least, 10 hours or something like that. So you are mandated to rest 10 hours. Now that's an additional 10 hours on top of the fuckery that the shipper saddled you with that you can't do anything. Well, now you can't sleep because you slept all this time waiting for the shipper to do their fucking job. So when you're finally able to move, you haven't slept, but you need to move in order to make money. And so you end up driving tired. It fucks up people's rhythm. It fucks up their sleep schedule. While all of this, ironically, was put in place to prevent truckers from being overworked and driving while sleepy and tired. It's doing the exact opposite. So we have these state troopers and these way stations and all these officials literally crawling up the ass of truckers, making their jobs miserable while they're getting paid dirt. for dealing with all of this nonsense, as well as being away from their families. No fucking wonder there's a shortage.
And then get into the skills required, because it is hard enough for some people to drive something like a fucking Prius or a Spark or a small compact and subcompact car, let alone a large truck towing a 53-foot trailer.
I drove an RV back from Orlando one time back to Tampa. I have never been more terrified in my entire life. Never again. Never the fuck again. I was terrified. And these people are doing it every single day, hours and hours at a time. I think I heard one trucker said that your job consists of 12 hours of boredom and 1 hour of sheer fucking terror, because you're on the highway, you're driving in a straight line, there's not much to see, not much to do, you're just driving a straight line, and then next thing you know, you're in the inner city. You're in the inner city trying to find the fucking shipper, and there's traffic around you. It's densely populated, and you're just shitting bricks because you don't know if you're going to have enough room at that intersection to make your turn, given the size of the trailer that you're towing.
Yeah, that is the one reason why I never considered it, because it's not the interstates that are the problem. It's exactly that. It's the surface streets. And yeah, no thank you.
Yep.
You forgot to throw in all the stupid drivers.
Yeah, exactly. You also have to deal with the stupid drivers, as well as, all the other shit that I talked about. And keep in mind, you're doing all of this while not even making minimum wage. You're in poverty at this point if you're a trucker, which beforehand it was a very, very respectable job to have, and you can make decent money doing it. It needs to go back to that, and regulation needs to come back to the trucking industry. One of the most horrible mistakes ever made by any administration ever in this industry was deregulation, because that allowed a race to the bottom where you have companies like fucking Swift treating their drivers like shit, not giving them the attention and the care that they deserve. And that's why Swift is, the punchline of many memes that you find on trucking forums and the internet in general. I think they made it Swift stand for "Sure Wish I Finished Training," and I'm like, that's good. I have to give you credit for that one. That's amazing. But that's literally the punchline. And that's because they know for a fact that they're a dog shit shipper, they're a dog shit company, and they treat their employees like dog shit. But yet we have tired, overworked, pissed off people driving these, 80,000-pound death machines on our highways, and meanwhile the politicians who allow deregulation to happen in the first place are patting their backs, taking their money from their donors, and be like, "Look what great fucking job we did, guys. We fixed trucking." And now people are wondering, oh, well, how do we get to this moment in time where everything is fucked? Gee, I wonder why. It's probably a mystery that nobody can solve. Bullshit.
Yeah, Mark Weiser out there says there's at least one whole YouTube channel dedicated to making fun of Swift drivers. I have not come across that one, but I have come across another channel where it's the thoughts of a truck driver as he's going down the road. So you're hearing him lay into the stupid people on the road, but also praising people when they fucking deserve it.
Yep.
I like it. We're actually getting the full range from that guy. And there are times it's hilarious. There are times that it's scary. And yeah, the number of people that try to force their way into a spot in front of a loaded semi, that those fucking things don't stop on a dime, people.
Yep.
Oh, they might turn your car into a dime when they hit you. But they don't stop on one.
What I believe should happen is that all truckers should be part of a union. They should immediately get one hell of a pay increase, as well as guaranteed income, regardless what happens with their time slots or whatever happens with the shipper. It doesn't fucking matter. Even if your truck, cataclysmically bursts into flames and there's no way in hell you're going to be making this trip. There's no way in hell this truck is moving any merchandise whatsoever. You're at least guaranteed some money so that you don't end up getting fucked by this unforeseen event. There should be at minimum pay, guaranteed pay. People should be, these drivers should be part of a union. And also keep this in mind, even if that means I have to pay a little bit more at the store, I bet you that the price increase would be a lot less than what we have already seen at the grocery store, while truckers are still being paid dirt. Keep in mind that the trucking rate has fallen off a cliff ever since deregulation happened, but yet groceries are still more expensive now than they were before, even as they were 8 months before. So yeah, I think at this point, truckers deserve it. I would be willing to pay a little bit more. And given the fact that there's other shit that we can also fix, not only could we pay truckers more, but our costs at the grocery store can even go down. It can go down if we start fixing some shit. And like, for example, what did we talk about in this stream right here? We talked about a few things that can actually lead to that happening. For example, allowing farmers to be more productive by allowing them to be the ability to fix their own fucking shit. Maybe that will help the situation a little bit. I don't know. Maybe.
I think I may have found the most difficult question for someone to answer. So, Reds, which do you think is more likely to happen? Swift to hire and keep a competent driver, or Southwest Airlines to handle flight delays due to severe weather?
Ooh. Damn. Oh, man. It's like asking me what's fucking more reasonable, that cold fusion is actually a thing, or that Jeranism will actually make a coherent scientific point.
I would put my money on cold fusion.
Both of those are more likely than the other two.
Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna say, just for the record, both of them are equally unlikely. But let's say, if it's heads, I'm gonna go Southwest on this one. Flip a coin.
It landed on tails.
Okay, the other one.
Swift actually hiring and keeping
Swift actually hiring a competent driver. And also that's let's go ahead and bring up the other thing that you mentioned, which was college. Now I heard from conservative outlets, and they always frame this on the moral aspect, not whether or not it's actually possible, which I think is telling to say the least. But they said that we shouldn't allow debt forgiveness because it is unfair to the people that have already went through college and may have already put in the time and effort to pay back that loan. So why should these other people get a free pass when, I was forced to pay back my $90,000 of student loan debt or $100,000 of student loan debt, whatever the case may be? One, that is a fucking horrible question to ask. And that is because of what we constantly hear all the time on Capitol Hill. We are trying to leave a better world for our children and our grandchildren. We're trying to leave a better, easier world for our descendants. But that kind of mentality of, well, I had it hard, so everyone else should have it hard, is basically us looking at the next generation. And when being asked, hey, don't you want to leave a better future for your children? We're all collectively saying, fuck them. That's why that's a dog shit question to ask. And the fact that people would ask such a question really hints at some moral failings on their part. But also another thing, isn't it not beneficial? This is number 2. Isn't it not beneficial to have a more educated population, even if it's in shit that in reality doesn't matter to, like, let's say the economy, like, for example, philosophy, oh, you're going to do philosophy. How's that going to help you out? The amount of philosophers getting jobs are probably very, very limited. So why should the government flip that bill? Well, because given how dog shit the government is at making decisions, I don't want them picking and choosing what they consider worth it for the U.S. taxpayer to flip, because they'll probably go to lawyers or fucking doctors, and the next thing you know, the market is saturated with lawyers and doctors, and you just end up creating a different problem. Not only that also leads to a problem on top of that. Not only saturation, but people who would do those professions simply because they're getting, a free ride on it, and not because they're actually passionate about the work. I would try to be a doctor if I can guarantee my way through medical school and not be saddled with a shit ton of debt at the end of it. But I'm kind of queasy when it comes to blood and guts. I would probably lose my lunch every time I have to crack open a chest cavity. That's just me.
And that's the thing, is that there are people who pursue being a doctor or a medical doctor and being a lawyer simply because of the potential of a massive paycheck. There are people who are selfish, greedy assholes like that.
And that's not the people that I want representing me in court, and that's not the people that I want cutting open my chest cavity. I want people who are actually passionate about the job. So allowing people to pursue their passion and it having be reimbursed at least to some extent. If you want to put a fucking limit on it, like let's say $100,000, fine. But that alone would go far as fuck for helping our population become more educated. And a more educated population is going to be a more productive population, and more production equals more return on investment. There actually is an ROI with this approach.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing, is a lot of people don't know how to look at ROI accordingly. A lot of people just look at it purely as, okay, well, if I invest this much time and this much money to get this much money on the back end, is that worth it? They don't even factor in the non-monetary side of it. Like, one of the reasons why I agreed and took the job offer that I have recently is because there is a big difference between my current employment and the previous one that is just night and day different, and it fucking matters. Yes, the compensation was an acceptable number. That aside, the company that I work for now, in 8 years, they have worked a grand total of 1 Saturday. When it comes to overtime, I can work overtime. I can put extra hours in, but it's not required. It's not expected. And if I do work any overtime, I have to log it. That way it's tracked and it's accumulated. And by the end of the year, if I don't use that time and flex time off on the back end for it, the question is going to be, well, when are you planning on using those hours? They actually care about work-life balance enough that coming up, end of the year, between Christmas and New Year's, Normally, it's 5 days off for a shutdown period. But because of the way the holidays fall, there's only 4 days that are actually covered by the shutdown between the holidays. We got an email saying, don't forget about the 5th day. You do get that day. It'll be an extra vacation day, so go ahead and figure out when you want to use it before the end of the year. This is the type of management that people will go to and stay at because, yes, we need to get the work done. There is a job that we are here to do, that we have to do. But I don't want you to kill yourself doing it. As a matter of fact, tonight, the boss took open invitation for everyone in the office to go out and have a couple of drinks as a company thing, getting together. And while I was the only native English speaker there, it was still an enjoyable thing to be out and just be. We're not just a worker bee. It's not just all work and all play. It's actually, no, let's go out. Let's kick back. Let's not worry about the stresses because you know what? That's going to be there on Monday. Let's enjoy the weekend.
It's amazing how the environment in which you work really contributes to your sanity. And that's the thing. That's the thing is that one big element that is missing from this conversation usually is the work-life balance aspect of it. And also there's a lot of company pride in some reason for everyone showing up to the office when a lot of work can be done at home. Now, what I do for a living it cannot be done at home. I actually have to go into work and do the things that I have to do. That's a given. But am I going to be pissed off at other people for by having the opportunity to work at home? No, absolutely not. Fucking rock that shit if you can. Save some money. Because guess what? Let's say they were to reduce the size of their office. Well, that's less overhead. Less overhead means more money in the bank. More money in the bank means you can distribute those savings to the workers. They have an incentive to do a good job. They have an incentive to stay at a company, given the fact that you are showing them that you actually care about them. You're like, you know what? We think you can do this job at home. We think that you don't have to deal with the stress of dealing with rush hour traffic. I don't think we need to spend all this additional money on this office space, given the fact that, you can do this shit at home. You're a salaried employee, so there really is no time clock per se. We give you a certain amount of work to do. You get that shit done to the quality standards that we expect of you, and you do that. It's a done deal. It's good to go. We're cool, man. We're fucking cool. And a company taking those savings and passing it on to the employees really sends a message to the employees, as well as the opportunity to have fun at the job. Just like you, Jared, yesterday I was at a work party, and it was a fucking blast. I love my coworkers. I love management. I love my job. It really is an awesome place to work. I'm pinching myself. Cannot believe I actually managed to land that fucking position. It was amazing. And I'm like, if more companies acted this way, we would have a happier population. And also given the fact that we're actually getting paid something that's reasonable, we can actually afford our bills, and we can afford to pay our bills because our companies are paying us a livable wage. Now imagine the other companies out there and the other employees are being treated like shit and being paid shit, and how they're making TikToks talking about how miserable they are, and their productiveness is literally going down the toilet. They have no motivation. So it's funny to me that despite all of that, we are still more productive now than we were 10 years ago or 15 years ago or 20 years ago. We are more productive now than we have ever been. So we're working harder for our money, yet getting less of it. And people are wondering why we are burned out. So if you can just imagine if I was God and could snap my fingers and make this happen, that every company did what your company does and what my company does, if every company did that and operated in that way, how much better things would be, how much more shit we would be able to get done.
How much easier it would be to
much easier
maintain
would
and
be?
bring on staff.
Yeah, exactly. We would not see this wave of overly depressed people who were put into shitty situations based on, because of no fault of their own. Some people are literally rich who do not deserve it. What was that? The genetic lottery, I think the term is.
Yeah.
And then you have people that are fucking brilliant, but cannot allow cannot afford to spread their wings and fly away simply because they simply weren't given the opportunity to prove their skills because they couldn't afford that opportunity in the first place. The way that I was able to get into this position is because someone gave me an opportunity to try out at a different job. So at that other job, I worked my ass off to develop the skills that I now have, the skills that are really sought after in this industry that I'm in. So I worked and I perfected my craft, and I made sure I understand the SOPs and the do's and don'ts, that kind of shit. And after I did that, I was able to finally branch out and find a company that was actually worth a shit, that paid me what I rightfully fucking earned. And now just imagine that if schooling was for free and I got that education, the old-fashioned way by actually going to a school and paying someone to actually, learn this shit by a teacher who is an expert in this field, and let's then say in this hypothetical that the government was able to pay for it, I could have immediately started in this position. Now, that's not going to mean that I'm guaranteed it. It would depend on how well I do at school and what I'm able to put on my resume. That is fine. I don't want that to change. But we should at least give people the fucking opportunity and not bankrupt them for the privilege. I don't think that's radical. I actually think that makes a lot of fucking sense. Because again, a more educated population is going to be a better population overall. Maybe, just maybe, we'll have fewer flat earthers to fucking deal with on YouTube and Twitter.
Well, but that goes back into the competency side. Not everyone is cut out for the advanced levels that are presented in college. And that's not a bad thing. That is nothing to be ashamed of. Because not everyone can be a mid or high level engineer. Not everyone can be a physicist. Not everyone can go to the extents in mathematics and the sciences that are out there. Not everyone can be a philosopher to the extreme ends. It's your rare talents, your rare intellectual talents that actually get to those levels. But that's where you have people who have competency and have enough intelligence to where they can be very useful in a trade, in a skilled labor position. And that's where, if you make a trade school and college of similar regard, in that, hey, you're pursuing what you want and where your aptitudes lie and where your passions are taking you, great. It should not be a tit for tat kind of thing in that regard. Now, of course, you're still going to have rivalries amongst, like, lawyers. Lawyers love to dick measure about where they went to law school.
Oh, damn straight.
You're still going to have that, but it makes sense to me for that to be socially acceptable when it is an apples to apples comparison.
Yep, exactly.
Because it's hilarious. And I know the meme is out there where, yes, this person went to college, went this much in debt for this type of degree, and here's their peer that's the same age who went to a trade school, became an electrician, and now they're there to literally cut their power of the one who went to college. You are not better than the person next to you just because you went to a different type of educational institution.
And also, on top of that, even if they're not cut out for the job, as I said previously, we shouldn't financially penalize them for at least trying. Because I want to make sure that if we are going to put people in a certain position, like, for example, lawyers or scientists or engineers or whatever, we should really be sending the best of the best. And the best is not synonymous with the most well off. You could be well off, you could be rich as fuck, and be dumb as shit. Just look at Elon Musk. So, I mean, yeah, you can literally be the type of dumbass that believes that brand recognition means nothing and change the name of a very recognizable company to X and make it sound like a porn site. You know, you could be that type of dumb motherfucker and still have a shit ton of money to your name because your father owned an emerald mine and gave you a loan to start your financial successful journey or whatever the fuck. But in my opinion, just because you weren't born into a well-off family, that doesn't mean you should be restricted from pursuing something that you would actually be good at. And if they go to school and they just cannot make the cut, well, at least we knew at that time that there were other people more qualified for that job. Sucks to suck. You know, that's the way life is. You're going to have to find something new. But at the very least, when you walk out that door, there won't be this massive debt following you and chaining you down, preventing you from seeking something that may be more suited to your skill set. I mean, like the whole lawyer thing that you were talking about. You know, yes, lawyers like to brag that they went to law school and that they have they worked on these cases and these successes, whatever the fuck. It doesn't matter, because you can be a lawyer, but just because you had the means to pay for law school and get through it, probably barely, doesn't mean that you are well qualified for the job. We have lawyers right now that will say objectively dumb shit that get owned the fuck out of by some ugly fuck from Florida who ends up putting the friend that they were sipping for in jail because they screwed over another guy over a YouTube channel and is now in debt to them in the six-figure range.
Oh, that whole
It's
thing.
just a hypothetical. It probably never happened. Just a hypothetical.
No, not at all.
Just a hypothetical, probably never happened. It's like I said, it's just a hypothetical.
Although he did show up really fucking quick.
Pure speculation on the part of friends.
Yeah, like I said, yeah, exactly. This is just a hypothetical. This is speculation. Probably never happened. But anyway, moving on. The idea out there is that we should hold the old people to the standards that they were spewing out on Fox News. Is that I want to leave a better world for my children. Well, I imagine that a world where your children aren't stressed the fuck out, in debt, can't even afford the basic fucking necessities, or don't have to be in a position where they can't afford the basic fucking necessities. I think that's a better world. So I find it very weird that these same motherfuckers are bitching that we're trying to make college less expensive, that we're trying to forgive debt that's literally tying people down, where when people make a payment, that shit's only going to the interest. That shit isn't even paying off the original debt. I also believe, and this is a big thing that's been pissing me off, two very, very evil fucking businesses that should just be wiped off the face of the goddamn planet. I cannot believe this shit is still legal. So just jumping straight into it, for-profit hospitals should not be a thing. They should be outlawed outright, and for-profit prisons. They should be banned and outlawed outright.
Oh, there are three industries that should never have ever been considered for profit: healthcare, prisons, and education.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Here's a great example of this. There was it was a gut-wrenching story. But if you don't want to watch the documentary, which I highly recommend you do, but there was a fucking Leto's Law video on this. Leto's Law made a video about a judge that was sending kids to a for-profit juvenile detention center when they didn't fucking deserve it, and was getting kickbacks from the prison for sending the kids to that for-profit detention center. Kids for Cash was the name of the documentary if you actually want to look it up. And and essentially what happened, and this is fucking true, that he would make rulings based on the stupidest shit, like, hey, these two teams in the NFL are about to play each other. Who do you want to win? Who would you be rooting for? A kid would probably pick a team, probably a kid who didn't watch football, and would say, this team. And then the judge would go, you just picked the wrong team. 8 months. Click. Or another story about a girl that was sent to juvie because of the number of buttons that was on her blouse. Or the number of buttons that was on her blouse would dictate how long she stayed in juvenile detention for. And this was for shit like drawing on the school wall with a permanent marker. This is the kind of shit that was going on in this that met the threshold apparently for sending kids to this for-profit detention center. A kid drawing on the wall with a marker. I imagine that would be a referral or being sent to the principal's office, but to be sent to a fucking institution like that because you drew a penis on the brick wall of the fucking school, get fucked. And then they found out why this was the case. Because every single time this judge would send a kid to this for-profit institution, the for-profit institution would pay the judge for a job well done. And that would stay on their record. And sadly, some kids that had to go through this horrific ordeal ended up committing suicide because that literally followed them, and it made it so that they couldn't find work or couldn't live normal lives. And they literally, and these were like straight A students. They weren't bad kids. These are kids that have never been in trouble at all. Some of them wrong place, wrong time type of deal. But their lives were literally ruined because this motherfucker wanted to make money off of a for-profit institution that was sending him kickbacks for utilizing the for-profit institution in the first place. This shit has destroyed people's lives. This shit has taken some people's lives. And and now these judges who were, rightfully tried and caught and everything like that and sent to jail, and for ordered to pay back, I think it was $20 million in restitutions and stuff like that. Which, by the way, they're never going to see a cent of that money, which is also tragic. But in the opinion piece where they go through every single kid, I believe, in the ruling, and just the traumatic event that they had to go through, it is gut-wrenching. It is absolutely gut-wrenching. Watch the Leto's Law video. It will piss you the fuck off. And then we gotta realize, oh wait, for-profit institutions, this shit is everywhere. We're mad at this because it's happening to kids, but adults are humans too. And to think that this shit might be happening to them, where they may not be guilty to the extent that they deserve this harsh ass punishment, but the longer they stay in these institutions, the more money the institutions themselves get. And then there could be some under the table dealings where they will get a cut. The judges will get a cut of that money. Oh, the longer you send them here, the more money you make. All you have to do is hit that gavel on that desk there, buddy, and the money's yours. Like, what the fuck? This is why this is an evil business, and it should not exist, because essentially you're just welcoming, you are rolling out the red carpet for corruption, where you get kids for cash bullshit happening, and it fucking irritates the shit out of me. And that's just the for-profit prisons. Don't even get me fucking started on the for-profit healthcare system.
Oh, Red, and just remember, the majority of your judges are elected.
Mm-hmm. Oh my god! This is like actually. Let me find out. Let me find out now. Now I'm fucking irritated. So cash for kids. Let me just look this shit up real quick.
Whoa! Careful searching for that term, Red.
Yeah,
it actually happened in my state, Reds.
Yeah, don't worry. Safe search was on.
And I think it was 2 different judges, not just one.
Oh, it was 2. It was 2 motherfuckers. Where there you go. So two for the price of one from one bad idea. And so looking at this, it was Mark Ciavarella, might be mispronouncing the name, but yeah, that piece of shit motherfucker. Let's see. In convicting Caravella of racketeering, the jury agreed with the prosecution that he and Conan had taken an illegal payment of nearly $1 million from a youth center's builder, then hid the money.
Yep.
So, and the jurors acquitted Caravella of, let's see, that's to do with taxes and extortion, bribery, Follow Caravella's conviction, he and his lawyer appeared on the steps of the courthouse to give an impromptu press conference. Press conference was interrupted by Sandy Fonzo, whose son Edward Henozowski died by suicide in June 2010 after Caravella adjudicated him to placement despite being a first-time offender or being on the first-time offender status. So basically, first-time offender status didn't fucking matter. This piece of shit, threw the book at this kid, and this kid ended up committing suicide as a result. And
Fucking hell.
oh shit! And there's even a video of it. So in the video, you see him on the steps giving this press conference, and then this mother is just screaming at him that my son is fucking dead because of you. He shot himself in the heart.
Oof.
He shot himself in the heart because there was an institution that was in this not to help kids, not for rehabilitation, which is the bullshit goal that they're trying to push on to the public. Oh, this is our intentions. We don't want to keep people locked up forever. We're trying to rebuild them so they can be introduced in society. Meanwhile, this motherfucker is getting kickbacks from that fucking for-profit institution, and this motherfucker, this fucking judge, who's no longer a judge anymore, he's a fucking inmate, rightfully so, hopefully at the same institution that's now under, the public's control. He's getting fucking kickbacks from this shit, and it's literally destroying people's lives. This is why this shit shouldn't be for profit. It is an evil business. And going back to our elected officials, we have the power to outlaw this shit. We have the power to outlaw this shit. And there was but you can't get rid of that. Think of all the jobs you'll fucking, destroy. You know what we did? You know who we fucked over that was also for profit? ITT.
The jobs that I don't want.
I mean, yeah, but ITT Technical Institute. And guess what? The world moved on, and it was better for it. Fuck them.
And here's something to think about. If your business model is required to have unethical business practices, you don't deserve to be in business.
Exactly, 110%. And so we were able to get rid of ITD Tech because, quite frankly, there were replacements for them already standing and they were a lot better. With this prison, we could just take it over and make it part of the public's control. Kick out the fucking CEOs and the people at the top who are making money off of this shit. Make that shit, neutral in terms of revenue. Basically, whatever goes in immediately goes in towards rehabilitation, actually making the place livable. I think that we would have a much better job treating inmates with respect who can be rehabilitated, doing it with compassion and respect and understanding, than simply throwing them in a hole, allowing their mind to rot in solitary confinement, and then being surprised when we let them out into the world and they end up worse now than they were before.
Yeah, I think it was Sweden. Their model for prison is actually redemptive, is actually rehabilitative, and it has shown a significant decrease in return customers, for lack of a better term, because of what they do in there. Because what they do is not just throw them away and make them think about what they did wrong and put them in this fucked up environment. No, it is still a controlled environment, but it's more of a home, and that is actually forcing structure on them, but also therapy and job training and other potential avenues to get the person to break the cycle.
Yep. And also I just want to be clear. There are some people that should never be let out of prison. There are some people out there that are just irredeemable. Like that one shooter at the movie theater, that mass murderer that did during Batman. Yeah. The Batman movie was playing in the theater and he dressed up as the Joker, I believe, and shot a bunch of people. Yeah, fuck that guy. But for the people that are like, I don't know, guilty of shoplifting, maybe we should give them job skills so they don't have to be put in the position to shoplift in the first place.
Well, that, and also therapy, because there are people who they have the means to pay for shit, but they will still steal because they're a klepto. Well, guess what? That's where therapy comes in. Which, yes, that's another thing, that a lot of people have this stigma and overly negative reaction to just the term mental health issue.
Oh, you're talking about, let me ask you this. You're talking about how there was, or something similar to the fact that there was an episode on the show Hoarders where the woman admitted to stealing shit even though she had the means to buy it.
That's part of it.
Yeah, so basically it's not because they're starving or because they don't have the means to pay for it. It's literally an addiction, and it needs to be treated as an addiction. And you're like, if we treat it as the mental health issue that it is, we probably get a better fucking result.
Exactly. And it's not just that area. This is overall, overarching. Stop viewing just the conversations about and potential avenues for improvement and care around mental health issues just because of the words themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I know everyone out there at some level has that little bit of them, or majority of themselves, that wants to feel and be treated as special. Well, guess what? If everyone is special, then no one is. So, be yourself. That is the first thing. Figure out who you are and what actually makes you tick and what actually you enjoy and what brings fulfillment to you. Some people might find that through religion, which is where I don't say that religions are outright horrendous and never do any good, because there are some people who use religions in an appropriate way as a mental health strategy to give their life purpose. That's not a bad thing.
How does it go? Religions are like penises. It's okay to have one, but you don't need to like.
You don't need
around for everybody to see.
Yeah, you don't need to play with it in everyone's face.
Yeah, exactly. There's places for religions called churches, and there's a place for dicks being whipped out, and it's called Pornhub. Also, I wanted to respond to this. Reds, tell us how you feel about civil asset forfeiture without a conviction, or even charges or probable cause. Exactly. Civil asset forfeiture is what it is it's policing for profit. Where basically, if you are driving down the road and let's say you have a shit ton of money in cash on you. So if you're, I'm going to make a hypothetical. Jared, you found a motorcycle that you really fucking love, and you are going to drive with me down to whatever state we're going to buy this motorcycle with cash. And let's say this motorcycle is very rare. It's a collectible. It's sexy as fuck. It's desirable. And therefore, it's about $50,000, $60,000, something like that.
Hang on. Let me give the audience a preview.
So,
And it's shaped like the Enterprise.
No, not that one. This one here. Yes, this is the next purchase that I'll be making vehicular wise. Yes, this is the upgrade that's going to be happening.
yes.
Not sure exactly when, but yes, this will be mine.
Now, we're going to go down and pay cash to make that motorcycle yours. Now, let's say for whatever reason we have a taillight out or some stupid shit like that, and we get pulled over. They ask you the question, do you have a substantial sum of money with you? And you, being the honest individual that you are, says, yes, but why does that matter? They will then say, step out of the car, and they, without convicting you of a crime, make the claim based on absolutely nothing that money is actually for drugs. You are transporting the profits of drugs. And they will make this claim based on no evidence whatsoever. And based on that, they will be confiscating your fucking money that you are using to pay for that bike. Now, let's say you had some extra shit with you. You had the paperwork that shows your correspondence with whatever seller that you've been corresponding with, indicating your intentions of buying this bike. Let's say this seller is even willing to call the police station or the police on their personal fucking cell phone to tell them, yes, I'm actually expecting Jared to show up with my fucking money so I can give him his fucking bike. Let's say you had all this shit for you. Wouldn't matter. They will just say that's a scheme to disguise the fact that these are proceeds from illegal drug-related activities. And so so this is a civil asset forfeiture where they take your money based on no evidence whatsoever, no drugs found in the car, drug-sniffing dog says, you fucking got me beat. They still take your money. And so your money is guilty, and you have to prove it innocent.
No, that the thing is actually you can like have all that stuff to prove it innocent, but then comes down the problem that there's a lot of times when it's not $50,000. They're seizing a whole bunch of little $3,000, and it's going to cost you more than $3,000 just to sue them,
just to fight
get
it
it back.
Yeah.
That's the problem that we're talking about, and that was the case with one guy who had $70,000 confiscated from him, and so he had $70,000 with them, and he had to sue to get his money back. And thankfully, there is an institute out there called the Institute for Justice, and they do God's work. They are amazing. And they have a YouTube channel, by the way, and I highly, highly, highly recommend you guys subscribe to their channel. They cover a lot of shit, but one of the main things they cover is civil asset forfeiture. And they talk about how there is an incentive for police to steal essentially other people's money, because they know that if you take their money, they don't have any money to pay for a lawyer. And so sometimes, to just make them go away, they'll make a deal with them. They'll say, hey, how about this? Instead of us going into litigation, you literally going more bankrupt than you already are because of our thievery, we're going to go ahead and give you half of the money. Best to walk away with something rather than nothing, right? And it's so fucked up, but some people feel as if they have no other choice but to allow the police to literally rob them of half of the amount of money that they were carrying with them. And so IJ, Institute for Justice, comes in to save the day and go, actually, no, you're not going to do that. We're going to sue the shit out of you. And all of our fees are already paid for by donations. This guy won't have to pay a dime. And we're going to hold your fucking feet to the fire. We're going to light such a blaze under your ass in court, you won't fucking know what hit you. And that guy who got his $70,000 taken, every single penny of it was returned to him. Why? Because he was able to show conclusively that they had fucking nothing on him. But how many people are going to have a superhero like that come into their lives to make civil asset forfeiture not a thing? That guy was lucky. And so you got to think to yourself, we're in a situation where iPhone manufacturers are fucking us. The automotive industry is trying to fuck us. The housing industry is trying to fuck us. The trucking industry is trying to fuck us. John Deere with the fucking agricultural industry is trying to fuck us. And now we have literal fucking law enforcement trying to fuck us, both in prison when it comes to our kids, as well as your shit when you're on the road, when you're trying to buy the bike of your dreams. We're fucked six ways to sideways right now, and we're wondering to ourselves why people are pissed off nowadays.
Mark Breiser brings up something too about like the federal kickback. That actually gets worse too a lot of times, because there are cases where the local sees it, give it to the feds, and the person's cut in a catch-22. They can seize the locals, but the locals don't have their money, but they can't seize the feds because they don't have standing, because the feds didn't seize it from them.
Yep. So basically, to answer Jared's original question, what has been getting my fucking knickers in a twist over the past few weeks? Well, I've been watching a lot of documentaries, and I'm kind of regretting it, because it has really brought to my attention just how fucked we are. I'm finding it very hard to still have hope in the future. We're heading towards a dystopian nightmare right now, and we're along for the ride. We can't stop this shit. It's the gas pedal stuck down, neutral's not working, turning the key does jack shit. We're in a 2008 Toyota Camry before the recall was fixed. We're along for the fucking ride, whether we like it or not, and it's going to be a disaster.
It's not the dystopia we were expecting either, because we've always been looking at stuff like 1984, Brave New World, or Idiocracy. And it's turned out to be in a mix of all three of them.
It's no longer Fuddruckers.
No wonder that the only way that young people nowadays, the only way that they're able to get ahead in life is to either be born into the richy rich part of the population, or to end up fingering their asshole in a webcam.
Why'd you have to blow up my retirement plan like that, man?
Because, quite frankly, Jared, you and I are in competition right now.
Hey, you got the livestock segment. Leave me mine.
Yeah, but you copied my material, man. Only one of us can have an OnlyFans that features pictures of our feet covered in cottage cheese.
So here's your problem. You're a gamer.
Oh, there are so many people that one could be leveraged against.
Well, maybe one of you could do cottage cheese, the other one do ricotta. I don't know.
I mean,
feta. Feta's a little easier to clean up.
The fact remains is that we have this whole idea that the previous generation was touting this saying that we're trying to leave a better future for our kids. That was a fucking lie. That was a fucking lie. If they actually gave a flying fuck about us, you know what they would do right now? They would realize that it's time to retire and fucking retire because they're out of touch. They don't know what the fuck matters to us. And even if we told them, they wouldn't be able to remember because their brains are fucking gone. Everyone ages. Everyone has their time. Eventually, we're all going to be there where we're going to be able, we're going to struggle to know what day of the fucking week it is. Hell, sometimes that happens to me now, and I'm only in my early 30s. So when we look at these motherfuckers that are in office, that are 75, 77, 80 fucking years old, enough is enough. Get the fuck out. They're out of touch. They don't know what the fuck we want, and I personally don't think they care what we want. I don't think they give a shit. And so they need to get the fuck out. We need to find people who actually give a shit. And then we need to make sure that there is a system in place that keeps them giving a shit. Just like what Jared said, is that your salary should be directly dependent on the salary of the people that you represent. So if the average American in a certain district that voted them into office makes X amount of dollars, then they get the average of that amount.
Yeah.
You know, or here's the thing. Here's the thing is like, you know, you get paid when other people get paid. So if the population that voted you into office, you know, gets a pay raise, then you get a pay raise. If they get fucked in the ass financially, you get fucked in the ass financially. There's actually an incentive to do some good fucking work around here. But I would also add a little modification to that and say that there should be a limit to the middle class. No representation for billionaires. None whatsoever. They don't need any fucking help. They're busy picking out the color of their 15th Ferrari. They don't need any fucking help. None whatsoever. The way they live is absolutely disgusting. It's, you know, luxury on top of luxury. They live lives you and I couldn't even possibly imagine. They don't need help. They don't need that shit. All right? They will still have representation. They will still be able to have their voices heard. But the incentive structure should be for the middle class. It should be for the working American, the blue-collar worker, the truck drivers, for example. Those people.
Yes.
And then, on top of all of that, here's another thing that I would do. One other factor that should go into deciding compensation for the people that we vote into power is how well they take care of our veterans, because right now it's shit. We should not have homeless veterans. We should not have the VA being slow, unorganized, and unreliable. We shouldn't be doing that to the people that serve this country.
Or having them service members have to fight for years just to get an answer on why something was deemed not service connected when it obviously fucking was. But hey, not that I'd know anything about that personally.
Hint, hint, click, click. We're at a time where,
But on the bonus side, the VA has recently made a significant change in how they do their evaluation appointments. The medical evaluations are now no longer done by the VA medical staff themselves. It is done all by private practice that just have training on how to enter the information into the system. So for one of the things that I have requested them to reevaluate fucking again, finally had the appointment, and I saw in the notes significant reduction. So they might actually finally start getting off their ass. We can hope.
We can hope. And here's another thing that I wanted to highlight with the VA and the veterans thing and stuff like that. The military gets a lot of money from the government. Like I said, we have the most kick-ass military in the entire world, but we are paying way too much for it. You know, as an example, AOC, think of her what you will, but AOC brought up a really good point with a military contractor. She brought up a part. It was a non-vehicular clutch disc, and the amount of money it took to make this clutch disc was something low, like $10, $15, somewhere around there. Now, of course, they would have to sell that clutch disc to the military at a slightly higher price in order to make a return on investment. That's obvious. But the amount of money that they were charging for this clutch disc was over $1,000. So AOC was talking about their price gouging on this part. And she asked the contractor, do you know how many shots of insulin I could purchase for just the markup of your price gouging for the amount of clutch disc you sold the military? Do you know how many people I could put through college for that amount of money due to your price gouging? And she threw up some amazing statistics on that and figures. You can find the clip on YouTube. If you just search for it, type in like AOC clutch disc or something like that, you'll find it. But that's just one part. And after this contractor was grilled and just made a fool of, embarrassed right there in front of everyone, the government got a refund for all the money that was originally price gouged out of them. Now, that's just one part, one clutch disc, this non-vehicular clutch disc. Imagine all the other wasted shit. I mean, I heard a statistic that there's billions of dollars that the military cannot account for. They don't know where the fuck it went. And just imagine if we were able to reroute the waste towards the VA, to veteran affairs and shit like that. How much better it would be. So the one thing that I would say we need to invest in is oversight. We need to make sure that we're holding the military contractors accountable to the taxpayer. I think Lockheed Martin's slogan is "We never forget who we're working for." Well, we got to make sure that they fucking don't, because they're not only working for the United States military, they're working for the American people. And if they start fucking with us, we need to let them know that shit's not going to fly. And they make the F-22.
And putting your box into like pet shot collars.
But they don't make them small enough to put around their balls.
Or high enough.
So you got to think, like, all the waste that we spend. The waste that we spend, keep in mind, this is money that cannot be found, that's gone. It just went somewhere, and we can't tell you where.
Well,
How
okay.
How many homeless
let's-
veterans could we house with that amount of money?
Let's get a little bit of clarification on that. I am willing to. There's a lot of things that I would put in favor of this to show just how confident I am in this one. I am willing to say that the majority of that missing money from the Pentagon ended up in the Middle East, in someone else's pocket, or into a black program.
Oh yeah.
So it's not that they don't know where it is, it's that they don't want to admit where it is.
It's
No,
almost dumb.
that's fine. But there is
Oh.
a way of at least like you can like everyone knows. Everyone knows that Area 51 is testing some secret shit. Everyone knows that all governments are testing some secret shit. The development of new weapons and capabilities, everyone knows that everyone's engaged with this shit. It's an open secret kind of thing. You don't have to disclose what you're working on. You just need to say that, yeah, we're kind of working on something and we need money for this thing.
Oh, you mean the Stargate program they're not telling us about?
Yeah, exactly. They can itemize it as super secret shit. I don't care. They just need to say, yo, it's super secret shit. So we can't get into too much detail, but there is some oversight, and have people who are, have a dedicated team that's allowed to look at this shit, do the necessary background checks, then let them know that this is, a national security thing. And if you fuck with us, we'll fuck with you, but still give them the ability to audit their shit so that, action can be taken if abuse is found. Because guess what? Abuse,
Hang on.
abuse is not
could be. Not could be. The ramifications of waste and abuse in government contracts like that needs to be punished immediately. None of this pussyfooting around. It needs to start getting hammered on.
And I'm sorry, abuse should not be classified. Even if you're working on a classified program, your abuse of that program is not granted the same protections. Fuck you. So we need all of these motherfuckers accountable, and we need to do it now. And I guarantee, not only would we save billions of dollars in the process, but over the next few years, we could reinvest that money into the VA, into other programs that make it so that no veteran has to sleep on the street again. I fucking guarantee that the numbers will work out.
Oh, I will go a little further and reiterate something that I've said for years. Not just track down that wasteful spending in the Department of Defense. Let's take a look at what we're paying out in foreign financial aid. And how about this? How about we stop financing other fucking countries when we still have major issues of our own? How about that? How about let's take care of our own, and once our own are taken care of to even just a rudimentary fucking level, then we can open up and consider the idea of foreign financial aid.
We also need to have clear and definitive debates that aren't tied to black money. So like let's look at the financial aid portion of it. Maybe there is a national interest in some financial aid that's going on there, but we'll never know if people are being genuine when they're having these debates on the floor. We'll never know because these motherfuckers are bought out. And we know this, everyone knows this. It's not a surprise about it. So we need to make sure that when people do have debates on there, that there is a system at place that, to the best that we can, guarantees that they're being truthful and honest when they are making their points. We can't have a repeat of like when we debate flat earthers. We know that every time we debate flat earthers that they're being disingenuous as shit. Kind of have a system in place that prevents as much pigeon chess as possible.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and fuck over the filibuster. That too. That would be great. The next time I see Tom Cruise, or not Tom Cruise, yeah, but that motherfucker too.
Well, then too.
Ted Cruz, still he's just as unlikable as Tom Cruise, I guess. But Ted Cruz reading green eggs and ham on the floor. If I see that shit again, I'm just going to lose all hope for this process and for humanity in general.
I'm left was arrested and convicted for illegally selling missiles to Iran during the Reagan administration. The guy on the right is a Fox News military analyst who thinks Iran shouldn't have missiles. They're the same. Oh, that is Oliver North. Fuck.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and we should also just, universally come to the conclusion that Reagan was a shithead and not glorify that piece of shit.
Reagan had potential.
He had potential. He just fucked it up, and I'll tell you in what big way he fucked up. And it's on a topic that we already discussed here tonight: unions.
Senile?
Well, that too, but we all remember the story of the air traffic controller strike. So basically, when Reagan was part of the SAG, he was a member of SAG. That one group of people that's currently striking as we speak. He was part of a union, and he would always talk about the importance of a union, the importance of collective bargaining. And he said that shit should not be fucked with, because it's through collective bargaining that we get a healthy slice of the pie, and a slice of the pie that we rightfully deserve. That's something I agree with. Reagan said this shit. He was a member of SAG. He was a member, or the president, the leader of that union. So he understood the importance of it. So he knew that this was, you don't fuck with unions, especially you don't fuck with protests. You want them to have that bargaining power. Well, when the air traffic controller strike happened, because they weren't getting paid their fair share and they were overworked and stuff like that, it's amazing how all that shit went out the window, and he basically fired a shit ton of air traffic controllers, saying, oh, you guys have 48 hours to return to work and stop this striking nonsense. Otherwise, I'm going to fire you. And if I remember correctly, it took like 7 or 8 years for staffing to get back to normal because of that stunt that he pulled. So at one time in his life, he was all for unions and all for collective bargaining. And then in the next breath, he was like, oh, I'm not negotiating with these motherfuckers. Fuck them. Dude was straight up talking at both sides of his mouth.
He was a typical politician and actor.
Typical politician. We need people in office that understand the importance of unions and will work to not only protect it, but to not engage in that shit themselves. Our politicians should not be in the business of union busting. They just shouldn't be. But you see these motherfuckers getting kickbacks from companies like Starbucks and Amazon that are routinely going out and union busting.
Well, I have a great idea.
Mark Beiser is absolutely correct.
Oh, Team America or Reagan peaked at bedtime for Bonzo?
Reagan peaked at bedtime for Bonzo.
No, here's the whole thing with union busting. There are certain professions that do have a necessity for a union. Steelworkers, truckers, large conglomerate national trades groups that are susceptible to abuses. But here's a great idea from companies. If you really want to break up the union and prevent unions from being a thing, why not offer appropriate compensation packages and actual care and attentiveness for your employees so unions aren't needed in the fucking first place? How about that?
They constantly say over and over again, we don't need unions to do the right thing. Oh yeah? Then why are truck drivers not able to make even minimum wage? Why is that? How is it that nowadays we find out that UPS could totally afford to give their truck drivers 6-figure salaries, but they just didn't for the longest time? If UPS would have gave them those salaries in the first place, I can guarantee you they wouldn't be asking for a union if truck drivers would be able to make a livable wage, similar to how it was in the past when trucking was considered a good job to have. They wouldn't be asking for a union. They wouldn't be driving their big rigs to Capitol Hill demanding change. If we had companies do the right thing, Amazon wouldn't have to do everything in their power to stop this shit from happening, because it would force them to start paying their employees a livable wage, and give them breaks that are actually worth a shit. It's amazing. You're right. You're absolutely right, Jared. If companies would just do the right thing in the first place, we wouldn't need to have this fight for unions, and we could spend our time and energy elsewhere. My work doesn't have a union, and guess what? I can say with confidence that we don't need it. We are already getting very good money for our work, and we're treated with respect. We have benefits that are actually worth a shit, and it's amazing to work for a company that cares. I speak to the CEO on occasion, and she is very understanding, very down to earth. She doesn't have her head up her ass, which is very rare to find nowadays. We don't need a union. But I guarantee you that if the company was bought out by somebody and they start fucking shit up, all of my coworkers would be more than happy to demand a union and to start making some shit happen. If companies would just do the right thing in the first place, we wouldn't be in this fucking mess. But instead of doing the right thing, they're lobbying hard to keep it this way so that they can keep their multi-million-dollar salaries and multi-million-dollar bonus while the rest of us eat shit on the bottom rung of the ladder. Remember what I said previously, that in the past the CEO would make 20 times what the average worker would make in their company, and now it's 380 times?
But Reg, think of the poor CEO. How is he going to afford his private jet?
Did you know that if they are forced to sell their Gulfstream 6 to a Gulfstream 5, that they would actually be suffering in that case? It doesn't even have a remote for its DVD hot tub surround sound system.
I know. Could you believe it? Would you subject them to that? I cannot believe you, Reg. You subject.
Oh, I would subject them to even fucking worse. Keep in mind, I threw out there that what I think would start to get a lot of the changes rolling in the right direction in that case is by, instead of it being 25 times the median, no. You get 75% over. You don't even get to double it.
Jared, I'm going to tell you a story that's actually really sad. So, for Christmas, the only thing Jeff Bezos' kid ever wanted was his own private island in the Bahamas. Did you know that he wasn't able to afford that private island in the Bahamas because of the union efforts? Tragic. Fucking tragic. He did not get his tropical paradise, Jared.
For some reason, I doubt that. I bet it. For some reason, I think the actual result wasn't that the kid got one island; he got 5.
Pretty much, and it's. And by the way, I don't know if Jeff Bezos even has a kid. That's just a story I pulled out of my ass. But the sentiment and the point is the same. It's that these motherfuckers are living lives that you and I couldn't even possibly imagine. They don't need all this fucking money. I'm sorry. They can make do with 3 mansions instead of 16. Eat fucking shit. We don't need these multi fucking billionaires out there. We don't need Reagan's trickle down economics where I'm sorry, Ronnie, this shit ain't fucking trickling.
Oh no, it is certainly trickling, but it ain't wages.
Oh yeah, it's the greasy shit falling from their asses. We're getting the brown rain, as I like to call it. This is something that needs to be fixed. And if we don't fix this shit soon, life is going to become more unaffordable. And keep in mind, I'm not talking about housing. I'm not talking about, cars or food or electricity, that kind of thing. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about life in general. Life in general is going to become more unaffordable as time goes on. And it doesn't need to be. We can fix this shit. And the way we do that is that we stop voting against our interests. We stop paying attention to the bullshit where politicians on Capitol Hill are busy, being pissed off that some, fucking liar was put on a can of Bud Light. They're distracting you with this hand holding up the can of Bud Light. Meanwhile, they're stabbing you in the fucking back with the other hand. I don't give a shit that Bud Light decided to put a trans person on their can for a TikTok commercial. You shouldn't hate Bud Light because they put a trans person on their can. You should hate Bud Light because their beer tastes like shit. But besides that, you shouldn't care in the first place because you don't drink Bud Light in the first place because you actually have taste buds that are functional. But, all that aside being the fact that Bud Light tastes like raccoon ejaculate that's been sitting in an old wet log for about 3 weeks, we shouldn't be paying attention to that. We should be paying attention to that. We should be paying attention to the fact that they're going to start instituting change that makes the higher ups not fuck us as much to where we can pay our bills and maybe have a little bit of money left over so that we can have a little bit of comforts every now and then. You know what? I'm not going to set the AC to 77. I'm going to set the AC to 76 because I can afford the extra electricity. And it's going to be good electricity that's powered by solar panels on my fucking roof because there's no zoning laws that forbid me from having fucking solar panels in the goddamn first place.
Yeah, well, that whole thing, bringing up Mulvaney and Bud Light actually kind of reminded me of a meme that I saw yesterday or the day before. And it's funny because it's actually kind of true. When you look at shit lately, you have people on the belligerent left. They boycott a song. It becomes number 1 on the charts. The belligerent right boycotts a beer and they lose fucking money, and the company is actually close to being at risk for bankruptcy as a result.
If I remember correctly, didn't they lose $15 billion?
Oh, they not just the monetary loss. They have lost a significant portion of market share too.
And this is the thing. I think that what gets people riled up is absolutely sad. Sure, you can be irritated, I guess, at Bud Light having, a shitty business deal with a trans person. I honestly don't give a fuck. The fact that that's what gets people riled up is amazing to me, considering that we have a housing issue, we have an energy issue, we have a global warming issue, we have a food issue, we have all these issues that actually matter. But the thing that these motherfuckers are talking about is, how, what representative they choose for a TikTok video. They're pointing to the fact that Dylan Mulvaney is a thing with Bud Light or whatever. They're pointing to that fact and telling you guys to get absolutely pissed off about it. And they're distracting you with that shit so that they can continue to get kickbacks from wealthy people at the top whose sole purpose is to make themselves richer and you more miserable and more poor. That's it's absolutely, it saddens me that that's what gets people motivated for action. Sure, boycott the beer. I don't give a fuck. They deserve to go under, in my opinion, because their beer tastes like absolute dog shit. But
here's my question: How can I boycott something that I never had an intention to buy to begin with?
Jared, this may come as a shock to you, but you're already way ahead of the game.
Oh yeah.
So
Jared,
we're at the point where we don't need to be, so animated and boycotty of beer and shit like that. We don't need to be losing our shit with that. We need to be losing our shit at the fact that housing is becoming more unaffordable because of motherfuckers like Blackstone Group buying up all the fucking properties and raising, rents all across the board, meaning people in my situation, even though we make good money, ain't fucking good enough to own a home anymore.
No.
I need that cat.
No. Hey, am I hungry?
Ooh.
That's a lot of meat. You love your sausage.
No, yeah, pepperoni. Yeah.
Extra pepperoni.
Yeah. Can I 60 layers high?
I want extra pepperoni, and by extra pepperoni, I mean I want the pizza to look like a top hat.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, I'm ordering pizza. Give me all the pepperoni you have. No, wait. Come back here. What you heard was, give me a lot of pepperoni. What I said was, give me all the pepperoni you have. Do we understand each other?
That gate's very logical.
I want that gate.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
So finally, just to end on this, on this little rant that I'm on, which I've been on for like the last few hours at this point. It's amazing to me that people are willing to lose their shit over a Bud Light ad on fucking TikTok because it features a trans person, but not be absolutely pissed the fuck off that our planet is overheating. We're getting priced out of relatively what should be cheap homes. We're getting priced out of groceries. We're getting priced out of fuel and, the basic necessities. We're getting priced out of basic necessities. We should be really pissed off about this. And quite frankly, most of the shitbaggery is coming from the Republican side, and too much shitbaggery is coming from the Democratic side. Basically, both houses or both sides are completely full of shit. We should be pissed off about this, and we should start making some changes that make it so that they suck just a little bit less. Maybe then we might be able to solve some fucking issues.
There's a couple times in history I remember where the working class was treated like absolute shit by the upper echelon, and neither of them turned out too well. The French Revolution and Red October.
The guillotine was busy that day. But anyway, with all that being said, I am now thoroughly pissed off. So thank you, Jared, for inviting me to this lovely conversation. I am going to go to bed now so I can try to forget the fact that I exist in this world and hope for a better tomorrow. But yeah, people are struggling to pay their bills. People are struggling to make ends meet, and we can blame the people that we elected into office. We are not holding them accountable. We need to. We definitely fucking need to. And we need to stop being distracted by this identity politics bullshit, because that's all it is. It's a distraction.
Yep.
It doesn't matter. You can have an opinion on it, but don't vote based on that, because at the end of the day, it doesn't fucking matter. If Dylan Mulvaney wears a dress or not, that doesn't fucking matter, because that didn't make your bills get any fucking cheaper. Do something that makes it easier for you to live, and most importantly, leaves a better world for your children. And if that means that your children had an easier time than you did, that's a good thing. And the answer to that question is yes. So I'm going to fuck off now. Jared, thank you so much. This was great. Lord Burns, always a pleasure. Thank you very much, Eric. I'll be fucking off now. Peace out.
Oh my god. Wow. I'm surprised the person in that thumbnail isn't blonde.
Yeah, no kidding.
What
here.
other good ones we got? The beacons are. Okay. Yep. I love that reference.
That's funny.
That's a good one. To the person. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. That'll teach him. Yeah.
Yep. Accurate.
Oh, which side do you use?
Yeah. Let's play a game.
You were- that it is amazing what some people will put the effort into, and
Yep.
it is truly enlightening where their priorities end up.
See, I thought you'd like this one.
Oh, that I do, because it is true. It does only explode once.
Once. Yeah.
Don't know when. Don't know why.
You want your Dune cat.
Yes. I mean, how can you not love the Dune cat?
I have to understand how long does it take to cook that?
That is actually a good question. Are you using the restaurant style conveyor oven or traditional? Because
You ain't putting that through a conveyor of.
Yeah, no.
you never know. Some people could be adventurous.
Here, when you take something literally,
Hey. The instructions need to be more clear.
and we can all relate to this. Why?
Yeah. You want to know? Do you want the real reason why? The
Money.
the engineer's wife left him for a mechanic.
Yep.
I.
Okay, lay down. Lay down.
You have to.
Yeah, you gotta love the puns. Only us true Trekkies would get this.
Hey. Okay. It's the wrong version of the Enterprise, but
I'll give it a pass. You know?
I still but
Yep. And of course, if you guys know this, if you haven't watched Strange New Worlds,
actually,
I have one. Hold on.
what do you got, Tech?
Let's go ahead and
Let me stop here for a moment. Oh, yep. I've seen that one. I've seen that one before.
yeah. So, all right. So, anyone out there, if you have not seen it yet, if you want a hilariously sadistic view of someone's mental health failing, go to the Dave Cullen channel and start watching his reactions to the Strange New Worlds episodes. He's just taking a nosedive. He has tried so hard to give it the benefit of the doubt. He's on the verge of giving up. You can hear it in his voice, and it makes me laugh.
I gotta admit though, I actually liked the musical episode of Strange New Worlds.
Because it was so ridiculous?
Yeah. Well, It was awesome.
And the kicker, at least 3 of the cast members are professional singers too.
Yeah. Well, so here's the thing, though, and this is where I agree with a good size of the criticism that the show has gotten, specifically for that episode.
Oh yeah.
So apparently, the inspiration for that episode came from Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Yes. And if you didn't, there's a Easter egg in the episode referring back to Buffy.
But here's the thing. In the universe that Buffy the Vampire Slayer takes place in, there is an in-universe reason why the musical episode happens.
Oh.
Because there's witchcraft and sorcery and all other sorts of bullshit like that.
No, go figure.
What was the in-universe explanation for the musical episode of Strange New Worlds? Was there one?
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember what the exact reasoning was, or something along the lines.
Yeah, it was something about like some sort of subspace conduit thing, frequency thing.
They are trying to utilize it for subspace across the quadrant, but instead they decide to pipe music through it, and then they end up in a subspace reality type thing.
Yeah, it's like a
A
pocket,
music-
almost like a pocket universe that operates by the rules of musicals.
Exactly, that's what it was.
Well, I hope whoever wrote that script really, really took the time to do a proper warm-up before that stretch.
Well, the thing is, the actors for Strange New Worlds said they enjoyed that episode. They had fun.
Well, yeah, because it was pure fucking ridiculousness. As someone who's been a cast member in shows before, those are the best days because it doesn't fucking matter. You can just have a rip-roaring time.
Yep. The one thing I didn't know until I found out later was the Klingon commander there, the K-pop Klingon. He's also from season 1 of Strange New Worlds. He is the guy who played Hemmer.
Well, at least they're sticking to that and reusing guest actors for multiple characters, although no one will be a better pillar and shining example of that than Jeffrey Combs.
Oh yeah, yep. I think he's been in almost every iteration of Star Trek so far.
They brought back some old alums too, because they
That's
had
true,
Clint Howard. Clint Howard made an appearance this season.
Yes, he did. He came back for was it Discovery?
Yeah. No. Well, somebody came back Strange New Worlds.
Oh yeah, he was that too. Yep, he was in the I can't remember the name of the episode, but I know what you're talking about. Yeah, he was the field commander, the field medic commander.
You know, I will say this, though, and I'm sticking to this. I will be willing to give Discovery and Strange New Worlds a full-on legitimate shot once CBS finally admits that they're not part of the Prime Universe and that they actually didn't know how to have made the shows flow seamlessly into the original series. They do that. They do that, they'll get a pass. Because that's the thing is, actually, a couple nights ago, I watched the JJ Verse movie, the first one. And, yeah, my previous commentary still holds. That movie was actually enjoyable for what it was, because they admitted it was a different timeline from the fucking get-go.
Exactly, because where the timeline split, yeah.
Yeah, so the characters being slightly different, the situations being different, it all worked. Because they admitted from the beginning, this is a reboot, it's not going to be the same. Yes, the character names are going to be the same, there is going to be some similarities, but it is a new timeline.
Yeah.
There's always been the hypothesis, too, that the whole happenings of Star Trek First Contact created a separate timeline that included Enterprise and Enterprise
Discovery, Picard, and Strange New Worlds. Yeah, that would make sense to me.
Slightly different timeline, so I'm fine with that because I didn't care for the future Discovery's been pretty good. Didn't care for the early Discovery. I like Anson Mount's Pike. I think he does a
Oh,
great job as Pike, and I've liked Strange New Worlds. So, which I like I said, I was okay with the musical. It's ridiculous, but
Right.
it's good ridiculous. So,
Oh, or the was it Those Old Scientist episode?
oh yeah, that was great. Did you see that one?
Yeah, it's the crossover.
Well,
They-
yeah. Well, and here's the thing: is I actually went through and I'm up to date on Lower Decks.
Yep.
That was a lot better than I was initially expecting it to be. Yeah, there were the first half of season 1 had a bit more of the Rick and Morty-esque flavorings thrown into it, but
Yeah.
as the show went along, yeah, that actually would fit. That's fine. It actually did progress accordingly, and all the references that they made, they were handled in a way that made sense, that actually worked in universe. But it's are they actually going to go into development on season 5 of Discovery, or is it going to die the way that the Section 31 show has effectively died?
Season 5 is the final season of Discovery.
Yes, but it has not actually begun production yet because of the strike and everything. So
Yeah, they're saying what 2024 is when it's supposed to be
in
supposed to be out.
production,
Is it?
no. If it's going to be out in 2024, they need to be in production now, and they're
Or already
not.
or already in post production.
They
And they're behind.
they could still get it out if it was late 2024. But yeah, it's getting to the point where it's probably going to get delayed to 2025 now.
That's right. Yeah.
It's getting close at least.
Yeah, so that's and
Did you see the crossover Lower Decks episode though, Jared?
most of it.
Oh, did it?
And,
I got
and
it.
that-
I do have to say that one of my absolute favorite favorite parts of the episode was at the end when they're back in the Lower Decks universe, and the commander's coming over and looking at the poster and talk about how she's the hottest first officer in Starfleet. I love that part, that inside joke. He's voiced by Jerry O'Connell.
Mhm.
That's his wife.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is little things like that are great.
Well, considering who directed the episode,
Riker,
Jonathan
Frakes.
Frakes. Yeah, Franks. He directed the entire episode, so they had a lot of fun with it.
Well, and that's the thing, is I think Frakes is he's batting a little over 500 for the episodes of these latest editions of Star Trek that he's directed.
Yep.
The Picard episodes, I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt that there was only so much he could do with the scripts that he was given for those episodes.
I believe it.
But Discovery, again, I know that those episodes were better because he was the one directing him. I haven't seen enough of Strange New Worlds to figure that in, but he's sitting close to even between the good and bad. Wow. Oh, lots of tips. Sure is fucking right for that job.
Reveals.
Oh, and the Gowron face is just a little too on point for it.
I love that meme.
Gowron, it just had so many moments that just so memeable.
Yes.
And just think of how many more there would be if memes were a thing back in the 90s.
Oh yeah.
If they started memeing him immediately, or even, let's put it to the late 90s, so a little after his character ran out. Oh, that... kind of makes you wonder where the evolution of it would go to. I mean, Gowron, it's not the eyes you have to worry about with Gowron. It's the mouth. The mouth shows the true intensity of what he's feeling when he looks at something.
Oh, what was it? I was just reading an article. I'll have to see if I can get a copy of it. It's a Star Trek audio book, and it's the actor who played Garrick is going to be narrating the book. And it's dealing with more backstory of Garrick.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Robinson really is the perfect.
Mm-hmm.
You can't. A character like that, especially if it's going to be first person and inner monologue, exploring the background and further history and progression of Garrick, you gotta have him doing it.
Oh, exactly.
But, anyways, I am going to call it a night myself.
Oh, yeah.
And actually, Reds already knows why. But for those who are wondering, no, did not fall off the planet. No, the planet is not flat, so there was no edge to fall off of.
Cat knocked you off.
But no, it's one of those with the new job and everything. I've been making it a point to spend more quality time with the wife. So that's generally where I've been Friday nights, is with her.
Oh, I don't blame you.
And so the main reason why I'm here tonight is she's out of town on a business trip to a trade show. So I had the time and surprisingly awake.
Oh, I know that feeling.
So, with that, thank y'all for showing up. I'm not sure when the next one's going to happen. It might be in a few weeks. I don't know. Just keep
few
an
weeks,
eye
few
out.
months. Few weeks, few months, something like that.
Yeah. We'll still be here.
Keep an eye out. Ring that notification bell. That way when it posts, you'll know. When it goes live, you'll know. Maybe, unless YouTube is really upset at me. No idea why. I have no idea why that would happen.